before I got my teaching position, I kind of was like third grade, they kind of had me everywhere, but I really just gravitated toward those younger grades. I mean, to me, I thought, oh, kinder through third, I would definitely want to be in that space. And so I think when they get to second grade is a lot of independence. Like these kids are proud of everything they can do on their own. They're so excited about school. So you kind of see this shift of like, oh, they need a lot of help to, oh, they're doing it on their own. That's amazing. Like once you've shown them, they go off on their own. And then you start to see that growth happen in second grade where they really know what they like.
All right, welcome back, my fellow ex-homies. It is your boy Jacob G, and we are back for another week of the Ex-Homeschoolers Club, the place where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing up a homeschool kid. Today, I've got a very special guest, someone who's near and dear to my heart. My cousin Amanda is joining me, and we are going to touch on, she's a public school teacher, and so we're going to talk about just public school and what it means to be an educator, what it looks like, how things have changed in her career as an educator, and kind of just some thoughts on the education space in general. Maybe we'll get her thoughts on the homeschool experience as well. So Amanda, welcome to the Ex-Homeschoolers
Yes,
Club.
thank you. I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I'm so stoked to have you. We recently reconnected at a family reunion, and I felt like we had a good conversation around education, and I was like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I feel like this needs to be on the podcast.
Yes.
So so thank you for coming on.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's kick things off kind of with your education background because you were not a homeschool kid. And so were you public schooled all the way through, or did you do private, charter school, anything unique or different?
I was in public school throughout all my years. And so, yeah, I no homeschooling, no charter school, no um, anything other than public school.
I mean, how was that experience? I know like I did public school for 2 years. Like I remember somewhat of the dynamics of it a little bit, but like did you enjoy your time in school or, or would you have wished something different?
I did enjoy school. I like always just a learner. I was a reader. I had wonderful teachers. I mean, there's like specific teachers I can like tell you their name and like things we did in their class. And so I had a great like just school background and um so I did really enjoy it.
And is that like where does your heart for wanting to be a teacher like come into like how does it fit into that? Did you know go I mean, you obviously went to school to be an educator, went to college to be an
Yes.
educator, but like when did that light bulb click on for you of like I think this might be what I want to do?
For me, it was pretty early on. I mean, I specifically had like second, third grade teacher that like just really um made a big impact in my life. So second grade is like, and it's just funny because now I teach second grade, but second grade was just like the year where I'm like, it's like I watched my teacher like, wow, this is so awesome. And as I continued, a great third grade teacher, a great fourth grade teacher, fifth grade teacher. And so pretty early on, I knew like, I think I'm interested in this. I did kind of go through, do I want to be a nurse or a teacher? I kind of debated both of those, but as the years went on, I think each year just kind of solidified this is what I want to do. I, of course, also had some background in like babysitting and like working at a preschool. So I just think everything I did after that really solidified that I think I do want to be an educator. And then, of course, I just continued on that path.
What's funny is like as I was kind of prepping for this conversation, I had a talk with my mom, and when I was a baby, we lived with your family for
Mm,
a few months in there, and
yes.
my mom always tells the story of she's like Amanda just would come home and she just was like she just wanted to play with you, and and that led into even when we were young kids, you babysat us quite a bit and hung out with us.
Yes.
We would come stay with you guys, and I'm sure maybe there was some annoying times in there from us as well, but 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 there's a reason that the Ortega three are like our favorite cousins. And yes, I just put that out on the internet, so I'm sorry to
I
the rest
know.
of the
And
family
now
if you guys hear
all
this.
our other cousins are gonna hear you say
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but yeah, but I have always known you as such a loving and caring person, so it just makes sense that you would go into like you
Hmm.
said, either nursing or teaching or something like that. Because I
Yeah.
remember even as a kid, the way you played with us and the things you did with us always felt like it had this level of like an education or a real life experience that kind of like mattered, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
It wasn't
Hmm.
just a like, oh, let's just waste time. There was always this additional element to it. And so I think that's really cool. So walk me through getting like a teaching degree. Is it just like a 4 year program, or I know some people go on to do like masters and stuff, but
Yes.
what did that look like for you?
I did transfer. I started out at the junior college there in Ventura and then transferred to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. That's how I landed in this area. It was a 4 year program, and then I continued on an extra year to do my teaching credentials. So then that's where like you start your student teaching. That's where you're working towards, with the state to get your credentials. So for me, it was about 5 years. I did not continue on with my master's. I still, to this point, don't have my master's, and I think I'm fine with that. Some people do continue, and that's awesome. But so for me, it was about 5 years that until
Yeah.
I was then ready to go and out in the real world.
Yeah. No, I know that like yeah, I remember having friends in college who were getting their teaching degrees, and I know
Mm,
some of them were doing that student teacher experience, and I know some people now who are doing that, and
yes.
I think that's one of the cool things about the education like degree programs
Hmm.
is that you have to kind of go get this like real world like lived experience, almost like an
Yes.
internship. And
Hmm.
um, so in those positions, are you primarily like a TA, a substitute teacher? Like, what does student teaching really look like?
Well, with student teaching, that's where, they for me, they found an assignment for me. I had two assignments, and going into those, I said, I do not want kindergarten, I do not want sixth grade, and those are the two that I got. I was like, oh, great. And I loved both of them. I started off with kindergarten, so it's like my first assignment was I was like watching the teacher. I was gradually taking over. She would say like, hey, maybe take over the morning routine, or and then my second assignment in sixth grade, and it was a gate class. I was like, oh my gosh, like I would have to like study the math before I taught the math the next day because I was like, oh my gosh, a great group of kids. And that was a full takeover. So, I mean, it was eventually the mentor teacher in the classroom. She would just sit and watch at times, sometimes take breaks because that's what mentor teachers do too. They're like, oh, someone's teaching my class. I'm gonna go take a break.
Yeah.
But it is a full takeover, and you create a unit within your student teaching. So it's really so mine was like on Greek culture. And so like we just did some awesome things with those sixth graders. So the second assignment is like a lot, but it's exciting
Yeah.
because you really do feel like, oh, I'm doing it, like I'm a teacher. And I feel like that's the best learning experience, sitting at Cal Poly in a classroom. It was nothing compared to being in the classroom dealing with these students that are right in front of you, grading paper. Like, just it's what you're doing. That I learned most when I was just in the classroom, and it didn't matter. Eventually from there I went on to work in that district, and it was more of like a teacher tutor position where, hey, kids that are struggling in reading would come to me, even though it wasn't a credentialed teacher position. I mean, I was still working with what I would be doing. You're going to have kids that have challenges, you're going to have kids that like just get it. So it was neat to work with, all different types of backgrounds, learning backgrounds.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to like the hands-on thing because I mean, one, being homeschooled, like got a lot of
Mhm.
hands-on experience doing
Yes.
a bunch of different stuff. But even in college, like the college that I chose, even though I did a business degree,
Mhm.
my emphasis was in entertainment, wanted to work events, and so we just did that at school. We ran all kinds of events, whether it was concerts or we did like school events. Like we brought in a bunch of like the board members, and we were like, we go pick them up at the airport. We make sure they
Yes.
got fed into the hotels and stuff like that. Which not the most glamorous job, but but like I totally relate in that aspect of like when you're actually doing it. It's like one thing to to talk about it in a classroom, but then when you're just like actually living it, it's like this is way better. This is like
Yes.
I'm hooked now. I want to do
Yes.
this. So, how long have you been teaching now?
So I've been in. my district, I've been in the same district actually for about 15 years, and like as a credential teacher, 13. So I'm going on my
Okay.
13th year.
I know you brought up that you like are currently like second, third grade teacher, but like have you done all six grades in that span of time, or have you primarily stuck in those early years?
Besides student teaching, being in sixth grade, and then before I got my credential, before I got my teaching position, I kind of was like third grade, they kind of had me everywhere. But I really just gravitated toward those younger grades. I mean, to me, I thought, oh, kinder through third, I would definitely want to be in that space. Um, so, and then I landed on second grade, and I've been in second grade for 13 years. So, I mean, and that's what they kind of say. They said second grade teachers, once you're there, like, they don't leave because it's great.
Why do you think that is? Like, what is the I don't want to say like attachment to it, but like what it yeah, I get like what is the hook there of like that age demographic of kids that for you like just seems to like be the thing.
I think when these kids are in first grade, it's a lot of modeling, a lot of, they're still like little babies, coming from kindergarten. And so I think when they get to second grade is a lot of independence. Like these kids are proud of everything they can do on their own. They're so excited about school. Um, and I think that's what kind of keeps teachers there is like, man, they're excited, they're more independent. I mean, obviously, there's things that we definitely have to really help them with and show them, and of course a lot of modeling, but they love that independence, like they want to do it themselves. So you kind of see this shift of like, oh, they need a lot of help, to, oh, they're doing it on their own. That's amazing. Like once you've shown them, they go off on their own, and then you start to see that growth happen in second grade, where everything in first grade that they've learned kind of really solidifies in second grade. And for the most part, kids start reading, and they start finding like their interests, and or not even just reading, like, oh, I really like science. And so it just gets really exciting. I think
Yeah.
kids get to a space in second grade as 7 and 8 year olds where they really know what they like, they really know what they want to do. And yeah, I think it starts to shift in second grade for them.
That's like spot on. I was as you were talking, I was thinking about like second grade is when I started my homeschool experience,
Hmm.
and I think about that first year of like it was tough partly because my mom was trying to mimic like a traditional school setting and just like not very successfully doing it. Sorry, mom. She knows this. But like I remember like the things that I was interested in. Like I loved space at that point, and so like getting a telescope and like that was what
Mhm.
I drove my education in that area because I was just like, this is what I'm interested in, and so like I'm gonna just like pursue it with everything that's in me. Um, but yeah, I'm like thinking back, I'm like, yeah, I was super proud of everything I would do
Mhm.
because it was like you said, you already kind of know how to read, you kind of know some basic math, and then like
Yes.
you're it's just growing. Like you have the base layer, and now it's like it's just growing, which like hopefully continues throughout the remainder of your grades. But
Yes.
so are the teachers in your district like do, do you guys universally agree that like second, third grade is like the best grades to teach, or like do each of you kind of have this like, no, I just love fifth grade for some reason?
I mean, I think it's different because if you talk to someone at my school as a fourth and fifth grade teacher, they're like,
Mhm.
I could never do second grade. It's like where everyone's at is you know, your fourth, fifth, sixth grade teachers, they more so are like, I could go to junior high. Me, I'm
Mhm.
like, never. I could never go to junior high. I'm like, they would be taller than me for sure, and I couldn't do that. The attitude, even in fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, I'm like, I see the attitude, and I'm like, oh yeah, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do
Yeah.
that. And not to say in second grade we don't get that with some kids that come in, but it's not the whole class. It's not, they're just going through a lot. So it depends who you talk to, because if you talk to a sixth grade teacher, they're like, second grade, no, thank you. Anything
Yeah.
lower than fourth, I'm not doing it. So,
Yeah. I always wonder that because I obviously I've never been like a teacher, but like I've taught dance lessons and music
mhm.
lessons and those types of things. And so and I worked at a toy store for a number of years and ran birthday parties for all age ranges. And so my sweet spot has always been like junior high boys specifically. I think mostly because like my maturity level matches theirs. But I think I totally relate with that of like you put a bunch of second graders in my room. I'm like, oh, this is not my thing. Like it's a little bit of
Yeah.
torture for me. Where yeah, like that junior high level, I think is just like that's my sweet spot.
Yes.
As far as relating to kids, I guess. But I'm wondering. So obviously, you've been an educator for a while, and um, I wonder just what your thoughts are on like homeschooling and the homeschool movement. Like, you
Mhm.
obviously you grew up watching my sister and I be homeschooled. Like,
Yes.
did you think that my mom was crazy?
Well, I can say it's interesting because you talk about you know, homeschooling myths or, kind of things how you guys view public school. And it's like there's the other side of that, as a like I went through public school. I'm a public school teacher, and how I've always viewed homeschooling. And for me, years ago, and around, when you and Madison were being homeschooled, to me, I'm like, are do they have friends? Like, how, because you just think of like you go to school with your friends, and kind of observing it, I'm like, oh, I don't know, so I had all, different thoughts then, like, I don't know how this works, but as time has gone on, I've just seen how, and I'm surrounded by a lot of educators, but I'm also surrounded by a lot of homeschool moms, and I've just seen how it can be different for everyone, that it's not every homeschool looks the same. They kind of run it a little bit different. And then I think a lot of things have developed since you guys were even homeschooled is, all these, cohorts that, I mean, kids, I mean, you can really tap into a kid's interest. And I've seen that. So I've changed along the years with just I just see it in a different light, and I see how it can really benefit, when kids have those certain interests. It can benefit kids that are in public school that are like, I just don't like this, it's not for everyone. I mean, I'm sure homeschool can probably also have the cliques too, but public school is so many cliques. I see it in second grade. It's like you start to see the making those groups and not allowing others to come into your group. It's hard to see as the educator and a mom. I just see how maybe some kids gravitate towards homeschool. So I definitely know my view has changed, for sure.
Yeah,
About homeschooling. I'm not quite like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of weird because that's kind of, you
yeah,
know, kind of
yeah,
seems a little weird. But I think when your mom and dad were doing it, of course, your mom starting off first. I, I just didn't quite understand it. I think that was it
yeah.
too, is that I didn't have quite an understanding of it, and know the full scoop, had the whole scope of it. That it was probably just not a great understanding of how it works.
The thing is, it transitioned over time too. Like
Hmm.
granted, we got connected very early on with like co-ops and things like that. So like we did have friends. Um, but it was hard. Like I mean, those first, I would say the first 3 years, like it felt a lot more isolating, and like I mean, I had gone to public school, so I was
Hmm.
used to 15 kids in a room, and we ride the bus to school together. We ride the bus home. A couple of them lived in my neighborhood, so then we play in the afternoon. I was used to that. To go from that
Yes.
to literally like I mean, my closest friend lived 20, 30 minutes away when we started homeschooling. That was a big shift and a struggle, but definitely by the time it shifted over time. And by the end, I mean, helped when I got a driver's license because then I could just go. But
Yes.
I made more friends and found those passion project things that I was
Hmm.
into. And so I think that helped a lot. But it's interesting because I think a lot about the difference of like the dynamic of who I am as a person versus my sister.
Hmm.
And I don't think that she would have thrived in a traditional class setting. I would have been fine.
Yeah.
I'm the firstborn. I got the analytical
Yes.
brain. I work well with the checklist kind of a thing. And so public
Yes.
school to me sounds like something that would be fine for me. She
Hmm.
doesn't operate that way, and so she needs to be able to bounce up and down on a trampoline or knit or do something while she's listening,
Yes.
and that's fine. And so at the time, public school just couldn't afford that for her.
Hmm.
But I'm interested to know kind of also like how you've seen now being in the education space for 15 years, the shift in that, because I think I've been hearing more and more from parents that there's kind of this like I don't know totally how to describe it, but there's like a hopefulness and like a dread within the public school system of like
Hmm.
there are services that have become available for kids who have educational needs, but there's also, whether it's a lack of funding, it's not available to everybody always. And
Yes.
so anyway, without feeding you too much, I mean, what has shifted in the last 15 years as you've like worked in that space and seen things evolve?
It has shifted quite a bit, and you think, I mean, I'm going on my 13th year. You think, okay, in 13 years, I mean, from my first year to now, it's different. And like you said, funding, absolutely. And, it depends on the district. Um, the district I work for, they do receive a lot of funding, and we do have a lot. Is it allocated in the correct spaces? Absolutely not. And it's hard, and it's also hard now having kids of my own, because I look at my class differently. I look at this class and I see students who have family support. I see students that have no family support. I see students that have learning disabilities. And I see a lot in my classroom, and I come from a space of like an educator, but also kind of like a mama bear. Like, I want to help these kids, but I could only do so much, and I feel like I really become like an advocate for these kids in meetings where I have to sit, and I have to sit in front of this group of people, and I have to tell them like they're not getting what they need. And they can only do so much. It's like, well, this is all we have. So to say that each kid gets exactly what they need, I can't say they do. And if you have a kid in public school, and if you have, like in my classroom, that doesn't have challenges, they learn to read, they can do math, and it's easier for them, because they're not having to, like, we're not having to, you know um put in paperwork for, hey, they need to go to resource, or they need speech, or they need all these services. But the kids that are not there, and the services take a while. It's like you put in the paperwork, you wait, but then you have to have all this data for a good 6 months. And then once you have the data, and I'm like, I really have become more bold in saying, like, no, I know what I see. Come into
Yeah,
my classroom, sit next to this kid, watch this kid, and then tell me you're going to wait 6 months for data. It becomes quite frustrating. Like I said, I come not just from educator, I come as like a mama to these kids. Like,
right.
if and especially when I see that they don't quite have that support at home, where their parents are like fighting for, hey, some of these parents don't even know what their kid is doing. They don't even quite understand what's going on with their kid. And so I just feel like I have to fight harder for these kids, but then again, I can only do so much. And
Yeah,
so it's hard to see that. And that's where I've kind of seen the shift, is that, sometimes we do have the money, but is it used in the right place? No, I think, it's shifted over here, and, oh, it's, hey, let's build a new school. We're up to 22 schools in my district. It's like, did we really need that new school? Or could we have used that for more services? Could we have used that for more aides, more speech teachers, more resource teachers, where more kids would get the help that they need? So I've seen a shift in that. We do have full inclusion now in my district. Not all districts do. It's a district by district decision. And it's, I mean, we're going on probably 5 years now of inclusion, maybe 4 or 5 years. And I can't say it's working well. And, I love having these kiddos in my class, but it's tough to see that they're not getting the the aid that they need. They're getting some
Right.
of it at times, and then at other times, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what are
Yeah.
we doing for these kids? And it becomes quite frustrating. Um, and you speak up. I do speak up. I do. But like I said, you can only do so much.
That's the thing. And really quickly, for anyone who doesn't know what the inclusion piece means, it's
Hmm.
basically like this special ed, and traditional school combined in one classroom, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean that can be frustrating, and like
Hmm.
I applaud you for advocating and going before boards, or whatever meetings you have to
Hmm.
be in, because like we need people like that. I live in a state where there is a lot of talk among people of like the public education system doesn't work, it's broken, it's all these things. And it's hard because I think there are broken elements like you were describing of like,
Hmm.
do these resources go to the correct places, those types of things. But I don't think that it's broken as a whole. I just think that there are broken pieces to it.
Hmm.
And that's where people like yourself can advocate. And I know one of the things we were going to talk on too is like also how parents can get involved and be support. And then and even people like myself who don't have kids, like what are the things that we can be doing to kind of help you um, voice those concerns.
The biggest thing I think of for parents is just getting involved. I come from both. I am a public school educator, I am a mom of three, and now, I have a second grader, I have a kindergartner, and then a little preschooler. So I I am very involved. I know their teachers, I'm talking to their teachers, I'm emailing their teachers, I know their principal, I've set up meetings with people. I'm very involved. Now, I'm in a space with my own kids that, they do fairly well in school. We haven't seen any like major challenges. And of course, if those came about, we would, of course, work with them. But if there was, I mean, you would best believe I would want to know everything. And I think that's where it could be so different, is that if parents were involved, if parents knew, especially like, hey, you have a kid in speech and resource. Okay, what does that look like? What is he doing? Okay, maybe take a half a day from work, go sit in your kid's classroom. Watch what's happening. How is my kid, in class? How is my kid with this teacher? How Just watching to see what your kid is doing. I would do that, and knowing, I think parents don't know, like, you could walk into an office, a school office, and say, "I want a meeting." And they have to give you a meeting. Like, you can call for meetings, you can call for, those times to say, you know, I want to talk about this. I want, they have to do it. It's legally they have to do it. And I think parents don't know that. Um, I think sometimes parents like kind of send their kids. It's like it's a teacher's job.
Yeah.
And I've seen a difference in the parents that are not involved at all, because I feel like I have to really fight, but then it's hard. I've also seen how when I'm working with a parent that's fighting for their child and I'm fighting for their child, what a big difference that makes. I
Right.
mean, some of these kids get services that they were not getting before. If a school is saying they don't need speech services and you as a parent are saying yes they do, then you see that the difference in that. You see that they receive speech services. You see, so when we're like on the same team, and I tell parents at conferences, like, we have to work together. Like, you have to do your part and I'll do my part. And
Yeah.
so parents getting involved, asking questions, and it doesn't matter. I'm in a district where it's, mainly Spanish speaking. We also do have like a high percentage of Mixteco, um, the Mixteco language. Um, and that's hard too, because some parents that speak Mixteco don't speak Spanish. So there's a lot going on, but there's so much education out there. Our district provides a lot of parent classes that you can go to in their home language. So there's just really no excuse, even if you are coming over for another country, getting acclimated, but knowing that this is your kid and you get one chance with your kid. So, and then those of you that don't have kids yet, like you never know if eventually you will have kids or if you have nieces and nephews, just being involved, like knowing like what kind of propositions and bonds are coming through that may eventually affect you guys or affect your nieces and nephews or affect, just knowing what you're voting for is absolutely important. And being, going to a board meeting, more people are showing up at board meetings, and that's where you really get to see, like, is that board, on board with us, to help these kids, or is it, a job for them? Is it just something that they do? So, and it's nice to hear people's voices, parents are showing up, teachers are showing up to those board meetings. And so just really being involved in that way.
Something that popped in my brain as you were talking too is earlier you had mentioned like the myths, the homeschool myths of like what
Mhm.
we believe public school is like. And I think one of the big ones tends to be this thought of like, well, when you send your kid to public school, you put them on a bus, they go off, they come home, and that's that. And then it's just rinse and repeat 5 days a week. And like you were saying, I think that that's a big mistake, right? It's like the education doesn't just stop just because school is over. It still happens at home. And as parents, I mean, who better to recognize what's going on with their children than them, right?
Yes.
Um, and so yeah, I agree with you. I think that's been a big shift in me too, of like realizing in the last couple years of like when I'm going to vote, I'm like, who am I voting for? Really, because
Yes.
like of course, there's like the top tiers of like we're voting for the president, we're voting for our
Hmm.
senators and things like that. But voting for the school board, I'm like, I don't know any of these people, and so actually
Hmm.
taking the time to research them has helped and ask questions of those people I do know who have kids who are in school and things like that. And it's just being like, is this a good person? Should we be voting for
Yes.
them? Is this who you like? And what changes do
Exactly.
you want to see in the school
Hmm.
districts in our area and things like that? So I'm with you 100% on those things because yeah, it takes everybody to make a change. So
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you this too. Obviously, your kids are in the early ages of their career.
Hmm.
Has homeschooling ever been something you've considered doing for your kids, or are you like, no, we're doing traditional school?
There, like I've told you, there's definitely been a shift, and it's definitely something, Harvey and I've really been praying on, because as that shift has happened as an educator, I just see a lot of things happening in the classroom, but then I'm also watching my own kids attend public school now and just being really involved in that. And then I see their interests. I see the things that they love to do. And I think, like, man, how, and we do expand on it. My husband and I, we do expand on it, on the weekends, but in the evenings, like, we do a lot here at home, and we carry on that learning. But sometimes I think, gosh, to provide them more. So it definitely has been many conversations between us. We'll see what happens in the near future, but it's definitely something that we are discussing, and kind of trying to figure out. And and my own kids have seen, like, hey, so and so's not at school anymore because now they're being homeschooled. So my daughter Ava's like, what's homeschooling? So I'm trying to explain it to her and stuff. And
Yeah,
and also I'm not going into it thinking like, oh, then we're just going to be home and together and
right.
everything's going to be peaches and cream. um I don't think you really know until you're in it. But I've heard stories, I've heard your podcast, and I've talked to your mom and your parents, and just other people. And so I don't go into it knowing or being like, oh, it's gonna be wonderful, and we're just gonna, we're just gonna
There
learn every day, and
there will be days where you want to kill each other. That's just the reality of the
I
situation.
believe
But
it.
yeah, I it was funny when COVID happened. I remember having a conversation with my parents and being like, imagine if we had to homeschool right now. I was like, we would literally kill each other.
Yeah.
1,000 square foot home
Yes.
on top of each other. We were already on top of each other, but it was like we would have literally killed each other.
Yes. Yes.
Nobody would have come out of that scot free. But
No.
oh
No.
man, but yeah, I
And then I
I
think what
yeah.
I think of also is, if I moved into that homeschooling space, For me, it would be quite a shift because I teach in a traditional setting. I mean, my
Yeah.
students sit at desks. I mean, I try to be very like flexible, like, hey, you are just like all over the place. Like, yeah, get up, like lay on the floor, go grab a wobble chair. I'm not like one of those teachers like you have to be in your seat. But I also have 25 students this year.
Right.
And so I can't always have you just be wherever you want in the classroom. So for me, it would be quite a shift because I'm so used to that traditional setting. Whereas that's probably not what we would do for homeschool. I don't think, and
Yeah.
I don't think even my own kids, I don't, they would be like, no, I don't want to do this. This is where we were
Yeah.
at. Um, so that would be quite a shift.
Yeah. One of the things that's come up on this show a couple times too is this kind of separation of like teacher mother, and
Hmm.
how like it gets really blurry when you
Hmm.
homeschool because, I mean, there were days I would do school till 10:30 at night, and but I wasn't doing school for the first 4 or 5 hours of the day.
Hmm.
So it was very interesting to try to get to a balanced place where it was like, okay, mom is taking the teacher hat off, she's putting the mom hat back on, and same with dad eventually, is like those types of things. And so it's interesting to talk to some of my friends because their parents very much struggled. I think my parents did too, but they really struggled with that. Like, how do you find that balance between the two? Because currently, for even though, like you were saying, you and Harvey educate your kids at home still to some degree,
Yes.
you still are putting on, you're just mom and dad to them.
Hmm.
And so,
Exactly.
it is a shift to think like all of a sudden they're gonna have to be like, oh, mom is my teacher and my mom. That's okay.
Yes.
That's a little different.
Cool. Yeah,
um,
exactly.
I was gonna ask you too just about kind of the curriculum building at in like a public school setting. You mentioned
Hmm.
earlier that when you were student teaching, you got to build like a unit around Greek history. And
Hmm.
so I was wondering, because I think another misconception that a lot of homeschoolers have is this like, well, public school teachers are just, they're told everything that they have, they're given all the resources and they're kind of told this is what you have to teach, and yada yada yada. And so I'm wondering, like, is there a degree to customization in the public school system of like teachers being able to like, you know, switch in and out of stuff, or how does that look?
I mean, we definitely have to follow state standards. We're going over those all the time. And, like for second grade has a specific set of state standards um, that we do have to follow. Our district also has somewhat of a pacing guide, to kind of, so you're not, already on unit 4 and you're supposed to be on unit 2. So there is definitely, and we're given textbooks, we do have to more so follow them, but we adjust them. I mean, we can, you know, change and kind of gear them towards our class. If I'm given a very dry, story, I'll find the real, they also like chop up stories. I always tell my students, I said, I don't like this because they give you a portion of the story, but there's this whole story with like details and, so I go by the full novel, the story that we're reading. And so we'll read the one that they've given us through curriculum, but then I'll read like the actual story, and the kids are always like, oh, that one's way better. I'm like, yeah, right? Because it's like it gives you more, they just chop it up. So, things like that, yes, you can adjust. Of course, as there's 5 of us second grade teachers on my team, and, we try to take things that can be kind of dry and make it more exciting, maybe do a project with it. So there's definitely room for you know, changing it in that way. But I mean, of course, you can't change what you're teaching. You have
Right.
to really stick to, okay, we're learning about fantasy right now. We have to stick to fantasy, or we're learning about, the 3 states of matter, so you really have to like stick with what you're teaching, like as the basis, but how you teach it can pretty much become your own.
The ability to add that secondary level, like storytelling, for instance, like
Hmm.
I think about, like, I read Robinson Crusoe, the abridged version, when I was a young kid, and then I read the full version, which, if anyone's read that book, you know that that book is a grammatical nightmare. Just run on sentence after run on sentence after run on sentence. I think there's a point where there's like 4 pages of just one sentence, kind of a deal. But I'm like, this needs a little bit of editing.
Yeah.
But the full version is like such a richer story, like you were saying. It
Hmm.
tells, it is, and there's so many books like that. And
Yes.
I was thinking about too, like I remember being in public school and there being I want I think we were learning about like the states of water, right? So like
Hmm.
vapor, liquid, and
Hmm.
solid. And I don't remember exactly what we did, but I just remember her showing us something, and I don't remember what exactly it was, but it was just this like activity that we got to do. And like again, like I don't remember the activity, so obviously how hard did it stick? But like I
Yeah.
remember the day though, and I remember the excitement around it because it was like, okay, we're not just reading a textbook and learning about this
Hmm.
thing. We're actually like seeing it play out in real life. And I think
Yes.
in my experience, that's where education in general, just like it actually like hooks into you, is just that
Hmm.
like, it's one thing to read it, but then to see it, to touch it, to feel it, it's like,
Yes.
whoa, it becomes a
Absolutely.
whole nother solidified thing in the brain. So
Yes. And that's true what you say. It's like that's what kids remember. Like kids are not going to remember if I taught them standard S.14 dot, and that's where, education can get frustrating. Is like, that's not what do I remember about my second grade teacher? I remember that she said, if you read 100 books this year, that she would take a group of us to go have dinner with her family. I ended up I was like so motivated that year, and you could see the process. She would have it on the wall. And four of us got to go ride in her car. Like, how cool, you're in your teacher's car. We got to go have ice cream, and then we had dinner with her family, her husband and her son. That's what I remember. I remember reading 100 books in second grade and getting that experience. Like, that's what I remember. Do I remember the lesson she taught? No, I don't.
yeah.
It's what do I remember about those times? And it's like, I don't remember those times. You had to take a test for the state. Like, kids don't remember that stuff. That's not what sticks in their mind. That's not what's solidified. They do remember, like you said, the hands-on, doing those projects. Like, that's what they stick with. That's what the one thing they'll remember about second grade or whatever grade it is. So
I don't know. This is making me long for second grade again. An easier time in life. But
yeah, exactly.
Amanda, this has been super fun. Is there anything else we haven't touched on in the education space that you feel we've missed?
I think whatever it is, however it is that whether you're in public school, homeschool, charter, like you've kind of mentioned, all different aspects of learning, education, is like whatever works best for you. And there's always a shift. Like, education is always shifting. Like, it's always changing. And like I've told you, my different views on homeschooling, because I've learned more. I see, and I get one chance with my kiddos. I think of my own kiddos at home. We get one chance with our kids. And I just want to give them the best. Um, but it's like, if public school works for people, yes, but get involved. You know, don't ever just send your kid somewhere and just, well, I hope, I pray, No, you have to be involved. Like, you have to know what your child is doing, wherever it is they're going, and whatever, aspect of education that your child's involved in, just get involved. That's my biggest thing. um I just wish more parents would do it. It's sad to see that part of it.
No, I think that's a great kind of message to end on is like just get involved. Like
Hmm.
it's time consuming, but it's worth it. It pays off in the end. And
And
so
I think that's it too. Parents are tired, people are tired, everyone, whether you have kids or not, we're busy and we're
we're
tired.
busy, we're exhausted. Yeah.
Yes, but
Yep.
in the long run, you'll pat yourself on the back for it. Absolutely. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the next generation of humans. At some point they're going
yes.
to run this place. We got to
Yes.
make sure they're the smartest they possibly can be?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Well, Amanda, once again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing
Thank you.
about the public school experience. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll maybe you'll be a homeschool parent at some point. Come back on. We'll talk about that
Yes.
experience for you. We'll see. And yeah, and to my audience, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, do all of the internet things you know how to do. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Share it with a friend. If you got anything meaningful out of this, please let me know. I want to know. I want to know what you liked about it. And yeah, with that, we'll see you next week. All right, peace.